Hi, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from Street Scores, and man, we have some super random breaking news. I was not expecting this today. I have other videos I want to make today and some other stuff I want to talk about, but when I woke up and saw this, I was like, man, we gotta talk about it. So apparently Jeff Bezos is willing to sell the Washington Post in order to buy the Commanders. Of course, a lot of us thought with him not putting the bid in by the December deadline, he was not one of 6 people that placed the bid for the Commanders. It seemed like we were starting to think maybe Jeff Bezos isn't as interested as we thought, but it seems like he's just trying to go behind the scenes under the table and gets Dan Snyder his way. So apparently he's willing to sell the Washington Post just to get the Commanders. We got to talk about whether this is realistic, if it's financially smart for him, and why he's willing to put the Washington Post on the table. Why is that such a big bargaining chip? So we got to dive into all of that and more, of course, but before we do, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get notification immediately. And every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one, make sure y'all stay tuned for all of the content, man. I have more mock drafts on the way, have a lot of draft stuff coming up, a lot of free agency stuff. I want to get my salary cap video done today as well, so make sure you're on the lookout for that, where I break down how much salary cap the Commanders have currently and then how we can end up getting to almost 60 million with certain cuts and things like that. So make sure y'all stay tuned, man. Infinite videos coming, like I said, with all the videos I need to make and how many ideas I have. I really need to be making like 2-3 videos a day. It's just finding the time to do it. But without further ado, let's get it. Alright, so this all started when the New York Post tweeted, Jeff Bezos will sell Washington Post to buy the Commanders, investors say, sources. And the article starts off reading, does Jeff Bezos love football more than he loves newspapers? That's a question getting tossed around the nation's capital as this NFL franchise hits the block. Chatter is growing that Amazon's billionaire founder is looking to clear the way for a purchase of the Washington Commanders by selling the Washington Post, with speculation boosted last month by leaked video of publisher Fred Ryan disclosing layoff plans at an unruly town hall meeting. The problem for Bezos reportedly is that Commanders' embattled owner, Dan Snyder, is still sore over the storied newspaper series of exposes alleging a toxic management culture at the team where bosses including Snyder allegedly enables sex harassment. Some even believe that Snyder suspects Bezos, who bought the Washington Post in 2013 for $250 million, encouraged the tough coverage in 2020 in a bid to force him to sell the team. So I think that's really interesting, because Dan Snyder basically thinks that Jeff Bezos solely bought the Washington Post to start putting that information out there about Dan Snyder to get the ball rolling on getting him to force to sell the team, and to who? Inevitably, Jeff Bezos. So Dan Snyder feels like it's just this long, elaborate Joker level plan to get him out as the owner so Jeff Bezos can slip in and become the new one. So that's really interesting. But also in the article it says, quote, I think Bezos's people could go to Dan and say, as a gesture of goodwill, we are selling the paper, a source close to the situation said. I think that could go a long way with Dan Snyder. And that's really interesting, because he's not even necessarily saying sell the paper to Dan Snyder. He said he's just willing to sell the paper to just somebody else, and as a gesture to let Dan Snyder know, hey man, it's not as serious as you think, and if that's what you really want, if that's all it takes, I'm willing to do it, type of thing. Now, of course, in the article, a spokesperson for Bezos says that the Washington Post is not for sale. But first of all, they could just be saying that right now as a way to keep their cards close to their chest. But also, the article goes on to say, one logical suitor believes the Washington Post is for sale and plans to bid, a source with direct knowledge of the situation said, declining to name the suitor. A second source who buys and sells newspapers also said that he heard that the paper might be up for grabs. But then again, the article goes on to say, meanwhile, front office Sports reported last Tuesday that Bank of America, hired by Dan Snyder to auction the Commanders, continues to court Bezos even if there are indications that Snyder doesn't want to sell to the Amazon founder. Bezos has not hired an investment banker to sell the Washington Post, nor has he made it perfectly clear that it's actually for sale, the source added. Neither source is close to former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg, who, according to December 23rd Axios report, is interested in buying either the Wall Street Journal or the Washington Post. So those are some very interesting details, but most importantly for us as far as Commanders fans and the potential of Jeff Bezos buying the Commanders, and who knows if he ends up changing the name or not. But first of all, straight up just as a financial thing, Of course, an NFL team is way more profitable than a newspaper, so if that's all it takes, of course Jeff Bezos would do that. I mean, of course, as a super billionaire, you prefer to have as many streams of income as possible, and he would prefer to be able to keep the Washington Post if he could, but if he has to sacrifice the Washington Post to get the Washington Commanders, that's well worth it. Not even close. But also, JP Finley tweeted out and reported that one thing I've always heard is that Dan Snyder likes to feel he always wins in negotiations. If Bezos has to sell the Post to buy the Commanders, seems like Snyder could view that as a win, and the billions and billions won't hurt either. So basically, Dan Snyder has been petty this whole time about standing firm and not selling the Washington Commanders to Jeff Bezos because of that whole situation with the Washington Post and all of the articles that they were putting out against Dan Snyder. And they could have been the catalyst for the NFL looking into the situation. And I just think it's hilarious that even with as much money as Dan Snyder has and all of these guys have, that ego even comes into play like this. The fact that Jeff Bezos is willing to be like, you know what, man, you win. You can have the Washington Post because he's looking at the bigger picture. Somebody can take this Washington Post off my hands if you let me buy the Commanders. I'm willing to do that. And the fact that there's a real honest chance that Dan Snyder would be like, oh, okay, I guess I win, even though he ends up selling his pride and joy, the Commanders, which he pretty much ruined. But that was his dream team. That's the team he grew up wanting to see win Super Bowls and things like that. And the fact that he's willing to sell that just for the pettiness of Jeff Bezos having to sell the Washington Post. But at the same time, just like JP Finley said at the end of the tweet, it doesn't hurt to also receive billions of dollars for selling that team to Jeff Bezos, on top of the fact that Jeff Bezos will be forced to sell the Washington Post. I mean, I guess when you have all of the money in the world, the only thing you have is petty victories and egos. I mean, of course the billions are big, but I guess if he feels like he won in this situation, that could expedite this entire process. And again, like I said earlier in the video, this is really interesting because again, Jeff Bezos did not place a bid during the original deadline. Going back to the New York Post, last week, reports surfaced that the Commanders have taken first-round bids from prospective acquirers, and that Bezos, who reportedly has been in talks with Jay-Z to team up for a buyout, wasn't among them. Bezos has been tight-lipped on the subject of the Commanders, apart from a November CNN interview in which he said football is his favorite sport, and his girlfriend Lauren Sanchez chimed in and said, I do like football, I'm just gonna throw that out there. Sports journalists, meanwhile, have been happy to weigh in on behalf of Dan Snyder, whose disposition towards Bezos is decidedly less enthusiastic according to results. Quote, not only was I told Bezos didn't submit a bid, I've had people tell me that the Snyder family has absolutely no interest in selling to Bezos, JP Finley reported. That was in response to reports that the highest first round bid came in at $6.3 billion, short of the $7 billion plus that Snyder is reportedly seeking. So that's another reason that, hey, Snyder, you just gonna have to get over your whole ego thing. If he's willing to sell the Washington Post, you may want to go ahead and go with Bezos, even just financially. We're gonna talk about whether or not as Commanders fans we should want Jeff Bezos a little later in the video, but right now, as Dan Snyder, Jeff Bezos is your best hope. Again, I've covered it in a previous video. The reason that bids came in so low and lower than expected is because you got to remember that you need to set aside probably around $3 billion for this new stadium that you got to get. So if somebody was willing to bid $6.3 billion like it's reported, that means that they need to have $9.3 billion ready to spend on the team and the stadium. And that's why nobody put in the $7 billion minimum that Dan Snyder was expecting. Well, guess who has the money to do all of that and more? Guess who could easily reach that $7 billion minimum and still easily have $3 billion left to put all of the money that they need to into the new stadium and still have more billions after that to be able to do what they want to do in addition to all of that? Jeff Bezos. So Dan Snyder, if you want to get as much money for the team as you hope, Jeff Bezos is your guy. And if you're willing to feel like you won from him selling the Washington Post, that sounds like that's just the match made in heaven. And again, I think it's really interesting that Jeff Bezos basically said, forget bidding with everybody else. I'm not even gonna throw that bid out there because, of course, like I covered in the other video as well, if Jeff Bezos went in there and put in a bid and it was like a really high bid, and then other guys would have went in and start trying to outbid him, the price would have ended up being way higher. Probably would have exceeded like $8 billion. But with him staying out of it and everybody else being like, oh, okay, Jeff Bezos isn't involved currently, as of right now, the bid was able to be $6.3 billion, which is lower than what Dan Snyder wants. And I feel like at the end of the day, that helps everybody but Dan Snyder. So Jeff Bezos was smart for that. And if Jeff Bezos can find a way to go behind everybody's back, under the table, and just buy the team from Dan Snyder without the real official process that everybody else is doing, that's really interesting. Sounds like he's about to just go ahead and jump the line and just buy the team, and then that's that. None of this long-awaited process stuff that we've been going through. And then one last quote from the New York Post article. They said Bezos, for his part, has said publicly it was never his dream to own a newspaper. Former Post owner Donald Graham asked Bezos to buy it in 2013 to provide financial stability and boost online growth. While the paper expanded rapidly under Bezos early on, beefing up staff and coverage, it was reportedly on track to lose money in 2022 after years of profits as readership waned following the end of the Trump administration. So basically, Jeff Bezos at the end of the day is like, well, I mean, this company's probably going down anyway. I'm losing more money than I'm gaining, so yeah, somebody can go ahead and buy this anyway. So again, as long as Dan Snyder feels like he wins, even though it's smart for Jeff Bezos to go ahead and sell the Washington Post anyway, I just think this whole situation with pettiness and ego is just hilarious, especially amongst billionaires. Now, as far as Jeff Bezos becoming the new owner, I see a lot of people saying that he's just as bad as Dan Snyder, if not worse, and then you can definitely argue that in a lot of different ways outside of football. I feel like football wise, Jeff Bezos is an easy upgrade. Again, if we're ignoring football product in business and stuff like that, I could definitely see the arguments for how Jeff Bezos could potentially be worse, especially like workplace environment and stuff like that. But on the field wise, with as much money as he has, I could see us becoming the new version of America's team. Just like how Georgia took over Alabama as the dominant program in college football, I could easily see us taking over being America's team, because Jerry Jones was a genius in how he marketed the Cowboys and making them America's team and things like that. Jeff Bezos could easily do that. I mean, we could dominate with facilities and in capital, infrastructure. I mean, making us the worldwide brand. I mean, Commanders, we could have more Commanders fans worldwide than anybody else with the type of money that Jeff Bezos has. Everywhere you look on Amazon is Commanders gear. Probably changes the website to Commanders colors. Everywhere you look, Commanders. You know how when you go to lids in other cities and it's like, or stores period, and it's really difficult to find Commander stuff there, anything burgundy and gold, you're gonna find 49ers, Cowboys everywhere you go, Steelers everywhere you go, Packers everywhere you go, Bears everywhere you go. But you're not necessarily gonna get some Commanders, Redskins stuff everywhere you go. With Jeff Bezos, little things like that change. We will be everywhere all the time. There won't be a country in the world that doesn't have access to a Commanders jersey, and we will take over, and we could potentially take over as the dominant fan base, maybe not in America, but worldwide. I mean, there's just so many infinite possibilities. Money will never be an issue. Coverage, I mean, remember, he owns Thursday Night Football. We would literally be everywhere and insufferable. We will be the dominant brand of the NFL and arguably the most dominant brand of all of sports if Jeff Bezos were to buy the Commanders. And I think that sounds like fun. Again, he has a lot of negatives, I can admit that. But as far as becoming the dominant NFL franchise brand worldwide, you can't beat Bezos, honestly. Now, again, there are other candidates out there that I would prefer for other reasons, but as far as taking over the Cowboys for the most important brand in football, I think that would be really fun. I'm not gonna lie. You know how easy it would be to get a Commanders jersey rather than having to go to specific websites? You know how much easier it would be to get Commanders gear or whatever the name will end up being. I hope if he does change the name as Red Wolves, otherwise don't change it. Definitely don't touch the jerseys and the colors, please. But either way, especially with me being in Atlanta, it's impossible for me to find any type of burgundy and gold gear outside of online. Bezos takes over, Commanders gear everywhere. I guarantee that. I'm pretty sure the new stadium would be immaculate, the best stadium the world has ever seen, regardless of sport. If money is the problem for us having the stadium wherever we want it to be, like RFK and stuff like that, Jeff Bezos wouldn't have that problem. I mean, literally anything and everything is possible under Jeff Bezos, and I am intrigued by that, even with all of the negatives that he has. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please leave a like on this video if you liked it, if you learned anything. Definitely let me know how you feel about all of this discussed in this video right now. Definitely let me know that. And of course, man, I appreciate all of the support, man. Shouts out to all of the sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors whose names you see scrolling on the screen right now. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.